Vice Chairman Sikasa. The next speaker, T. Devan Krishna Sai. Okay, is going to be given by Pradeep Jain, member Sikasa. So the modalities of the session will be the session chairman will talk 5 minutes first, and then each session will be having 15 to 20 minutes, and at last the comments by the session chairman for about 20 minutes. That's all. And over to our session chairman Naresh Chandrakani sir. So the lunch time will be approximately at 1:30 to 1:45. Okay, thank you.
Attention please. Can we have attention please? Can we start our session? Yeah, so the first session is an accounting. Accounting is one of the very important areas of our profession. I want concentration please, no crosstalk. Madam, yeah, so in terms of accounting, we have in these 2 days for this mega conference, we have 12 speakers to address on various topics. For the first session, we have 3 speakers, procure to pay. We have T. Vamsi Krishna to talk on procure to pay. We have Harsha Sai Devdi to talk on inflation accounting, and we have T. Hemant Krishna Sai to talk on robotic accounting. These are very interesting topics. I'm sure they will be able to make a very good presentation for all of us to understand how these are going to help us in our professional activity. So friends, if we start talking about accounting, can we have these? Can we start out while wait for all of you to be silent, please?
Friends, the student speakers have come here with very much enthusiasm. I request or beg your silence for a while so that the session can be continued. Those who are standing at the gate entrance are requested to either settle down or I request you to please be settled down. And I request you to remain calm throughout the session. I request you to remain calm throughout the session. What do you say, Chairman of the session?
Yeah. So friends, in terms of accounting, as I was mentioning, accounting is one of the very important and very old professional activity for us. When we, all the chartered accountants who are here, when we were doing our articles, accounting was basically done in terms of manual system books of accounts. I'm sure some of you might have experience with that, but we were doing account auditing only on manual books of accounts. There was the whole thing started up with single accounting system. Then slowly the concept changed from governing system. We are now following the historical cost of accounting, but the concept which is picking up is inflation accounting, and it was all manual. So in terms of manual, you have a lot of laxity that is happening. If I remember, some of us colleagues will tell, accounting used to take months together after the financial year is over. So when we were going for back audits in 80s and 90s, it was almost taking 3 months for the balance sheet to be done for any bank. Today, the accounts are updated on a daily basis. Every day evening, the financial balance sheet of the bank is ready. So that is the speed that is picking up. So after 90s, after the advent of technology and all various softwares that have come in, accounting is now become very prompt and we are using technology to a very great extent. So the three speakers are going to talk about the role of technology in terms of accounting and how each of these topics will help the businessman and the professional who is associated with the businessman in terms of making their job easy. So first one is in terms of procure to pay cycle. This is one of the very important SOPs, standard operating procedure, which will help the business community to ensure that the payments, the selling creditors are paid in time, and also not to waste time in terms of identifying a vendor. So there is a beautiful process that has been identified, and I'm sure the speaker will be able to share how this process, procure to pay cycle, will help the just-in-time cash. There is a possibility that so much of money need to be kept with the bank, in the bank account of a company. But instead of keeping the money idle, if you have this procure to pay, which will be just in time, your money is coming, your outflow is coming, things happen very quickly and you are not wasting having the money idle. That is one concept I'm sure the speaker will be able to share more details. The second topic is on inflation accounting. All of you definitely know that the type of accounting we are doing today is historical cost of accounting. But the speaker would be sharing as to what is the importance of inflation accounting, how it is going to help, what are the advantages, disadvantages, and I'm sure the speaker will enrich all of you with this talk on the inflation accounting. And the third speaker who will be talking about is robotic accounting. So the topic itself is talking about robotic accounting, which means that the accounting would happen. Suppose some of the entries which are repeatedly coming, so those things can happen off very quickly. There is no need of repeating, keying in again and again. There are so many technologies which already have come, but this is next level of technology which is going to be put to use. And I'm sure the three speakers will share their presentations, explain in detail, and I'm sure there is a question answer session also. So they will also answer their questions if required. And I would like to conclude after Barnaba as to what are the topics. And I want each one of you to please have a very attentive hearing to these speakers and encourage them in sharing their knowledge. To begin with, I would like to request Mr. Vamsi Krishna to start his presentation on procure to pay cycle.
To all the eminent guests present over here and my dear fellow students, a very good afternoon to one and all. I am so privileged to be here to present you on the topic of procure to pay accounting. Well, I was attending conferences right from last 2 years, but I have been in the audience segment, but I was wishing to be here right from the day I have started this course. I hope I am here and I will do well. Right, let us continue our discussion with the topic of procure to pay accounting. Well, if you could divide this whole term into two parts, one being procure to pay and the accounting of this procure to pay cycle. Well, what is procure to pay? Let us first try to look at the definition of the procure to pay and then try to understand what is the accounting process of this P2P cycle. P2P cycle, it can be termed as actions and events of a management that is put in place to procure what is the required goods or services that the management is willing to purchase it from the vendors outside the entity, that is in the market. Well, why do we need it in the first place? In a conglomerate of entities and big divisions, rather to say multi-divisional corporates, production is the biggest task of the entity and it has to be framed in a appropriate manner. If that process goes wrong, organization often end up bearing huge losses. Well, this P2P cycle will help the management to procure the goods in the most cost-effective manner and in the rightly manner. As sir said, we have come a long way in terms of accounting, right from the single entry to manual entry of double accounting, and then moving into automation of accounts, and now using the artificial aided based tools to pass the accounting entries in our books of accounts. Well, this is how a procure to pay cycle typically looks like. It is a bird's eye view of what are the process that is taken in the P2P cycle by the management. We'll try to understand in a step-by-step manner in the upcoming slides. First, let us look at the full cycle in a broader view. First being determination of requirements. It is initially the need that kicks off the P2P process in a management or an entity. It involves various steps in this stage, like identifying the needs, sketching out the requirements, sending the requisition for approval. Once the production manager or shop floor management, who is responsible for procuring the goods, determines the requirements, the same will be transferred to the appropriate authority for the approval of the same. And once it is sent for approval, the appropriate management or the power of the other who is responsible for approving it will review it and then will try to approve. Once the approval of the purchase requisition is made, then it is transferred to the procuring team. Right? With this type of transferring it to the procuring team, the job of the floor manager or production manager ends, and the work of procuring team will start. Right? The basic responsibility of this team would be determining out what are the required goods or services that the management is willing to procure. As I said, it is the essential engine that kicks off the P2P process, and once PR is raised, the job of the production manager ends and the procuring team will start taking over. Second step, source determination. Well, source determination falls under the responsibility of the procuring team, a particular manager who will be assigned the job of procuring it in the most cost-effective manner. Well, for that, once the purchase requisition is raised, listing all the products and raw materials and services, a request for quotation will be prepared. As one of my friends in the question and answer session when Jayshree was speaking, raised the concept of SAP and Oracle, I have tried to create this PPT using the procedural aspects that were followed in the SAP, like P2P cycle that is being implemented in the SAP in the production departments of companies across the world. Well, this request for quotation is a process of creating that list of goods, requesting the vendors to give their best prices, like quoting their prices at which they are willing to deliver the goods. Well, that can be generated manually or automatically in the SAP. The first process of request for quotation is done manually by adding the items to the request for quotation list. And if you could refer that to the purchase requisition that is raised in the earlier step, that can be called as reference technique that is being used in the RFQ in a SAP module. And in that, once the quotations were received from the suppliers, we'll try to analyze who are our potential vendors and how best can we procure the goods or services that we are intending to procure. In this process, we'll try to list down the benefits that we accrue if a particular supplier or vendor is selected based on their past performance, their substandard ratio, and obviously cost benefit. We do not compromise on the quality of the products, but not at the higher cost. We tend to procure them with the lesser cost at a good quality. The company puts together a list of vendors that they think can supply, and once they put out the list of vendors, a company either puts out a calls like for negotiating the price and striking the best price that they can get from the vendors. Well, the next two steps, BO processing and order monitoring, typically has the same goal of ensuring that the P2P cycle is going to be completed in a smooth and transparent manner. Once the vendors are selected, we try to raise a purchase order. Once the quotations that we receive will be transferred across the divisions for the approvals. Once the approvals are received, with their approvals, we try to raise a purchase order and we try to send it to the vendor, confirming that their quotation is accepted and they are supposed to supply the products or raw materials or services. Well, at this point, the contractual liability of performing arises in the case of vendor, and we are also contractually liable to pay the amount that for whatever we have received. And in this stage, like PO creation is made and we transfer it to the vendor, confirming the thing. And order monitoring is typically a task to overlook the P2P cycle so that no interruptions in the process takes place. As procuring is a very important task, we should not keep our money idle. At the same time, we should not have a warehouse full of stock without having the production facility. When you create this PO, we generally consider different concepts of JIT, bottlenecks and cellular management, wherein each and every production machine will be interlinked to each other so that there is no processual delays in making a raw material from entering into our entity and going out as an output product. Well, we look after many issues to make this P2P cycle more process oriented and goes in a workflow manner that is smooth and transparent. Well, finally, once the PO is issued and the whole process is taken care of, the vendor will perform his task of providing the goods and services. And in this stage, goods received, typically we receive goods in our store or warehouse from the vendor. And at this point, we try to raise a good receipt note. Good receipt note is nothing but a list of items that we have received and ensuring that we have received, we are confirming it with the supplier. Based on this goods receipt note, if there are any breakages in the transit or any loss of goods, we try to deduct it from the goods receipt note. When we compare it with the purchase order first, and then we try to check whether all the products that were listed in the PO is actually received. And in this manner, like famous ERP like SAP, which is used across the nation, we try to create a material document and accounting document, which is material management module, which is used in material management module and financial instrument, financial accounting module FI. As a result of this step, the inventory that is being supplied by the vendor will be received and hits our accounting ledgers. As a result, stock level will go up. We update the general ledger account and update it in the purchase order. Once the whole task of procuring is completed, the invoice of the vendor will be received by the financing team or accounting team, wherein the three-step verification in this step will be taken care. Like we compare the invoice that the management has received with the purchase order that we have first priced, and then with the goods receipt note that the warehouse department manager who has received the goods will issue. We try to reconcile these three statements and everything that is mentioned in the invoice actually in agreement to this PO and CRM. We try to get the approval from the management, and if there are any discrepancies, we will return the invoice stating the reasons for that discrepancies and request the vendor to correct it and reproduce the invoice. Right? It provides a serial matching, and if there are any discrepancies we request vendor to raise a credit and debit notes or memos that has to be returned. Well, this is typically how three-step verification is done in a SAP module. We update the purchase order in the material management module, and we try to raise a financial accounting in the financial FI module. Once the materials are received, we will be debiting it in the books of accounts. As a result, our stock will shoot up, and that will be debited to the material stock account, which is MM module. And once, this is like invoice comparison with the PO and the goods received now. Finally, payment. For whatever we have received, we are contractually liable to discharge the payment to the vendor. And in an ERP software, we try to create subsidiary ledgers of this whole process and general ledgers, which is usually material module. Instant access to the account details is available. Drill down technique of this particular inventory item can be made, and manual and automatic process of payment, like payment run, will be made, and at the end we pay the vendor for whatever the goods or services that we have received. Well, that takes care of my discussion on the P2P cycle, but we are left with the accounting of this whole cycle. Well, what is accounting? Accounting can simply be defined as an art of recording, and it's a bookkeeping, wherein we try to record every transaction and event that has a financial impact on the books of accounts of the entity. Well, first flowchart or birth review that I have shown is typically, in a way, a short form of how P2P can be implemented, but the management, the multi-conglomerate management or multi-conglomerate companies or multi-diversified companies might break down the whole process and subdivide each step so that they try to create a flawless P2P cycle and ensuring that everything is procured in a transparent and most best effective possible manner. Right? Coming to the discussion of accounting of this P2P cycle, in this whole process, we will try to account for only for the steps of 6, 7 and 8. In the first initial 5 steps, there is no event or transaction that will affect financial statements of an entity or will not have any financial terms to be recorded in the books of accounts. Well, typically books received, we are receiving goods of some value, and invoice we have the liability to pay the vendor who has supplied the goods, and the payment is obviously a transaction which should be recorded in our books of account. Like this is how the journal entries in an ERP soup of a business entity will typically look like. In the purchase requisition step, we do not write any accounting entry, and in purchase order also we don't pass any journal entry as there is no financial effect. Well, in goods received, invoice verification, accounts payable, we typically have something to show in our books of accounts, and if we do not do that, we are not representing it in the fair manner. In the goods received step, we receive goods, which is an element which should be debited, and once the invoice is to be, until the invoice is to be confirmed, we generally create a temporary account like goods received or invoice received clearing account until the invoice is approved. And once the invoice is approved, we have the liability to discharge the payment for whatever we have procured. And typically, invoice verification, it's like we approve the invoice of the supplier, and as a result, we have to pay initial liability and it should be credited. Like earlier, we used to credit the temporary account from GRIR clearing account. We now debit it by clearing it off in the books of accounts, and we try to create a liability of accounts payable, which we have to discharge. And as accounts payable, we will make the payment run, and at the end, will discharge the liability. The accounts payable vendor to cash or bank, depending upon the mode of the payment, we will try to discharge the liability, and as a result of it, accounts payable vendor account debit to cash or bank is the entry. Right? I have tried to present this P2P accounting in a way that you have a brief understanding or overview of this concept. I would like to take any question and answers, questions from your side. If not, thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you all the best for your upcoming exams.
Attention, please, speakers now. Okay. So, Vamsi Krishna, you had a wonderful presentation on procure to pay cycle. Maybe I will give the gist after all the other two speakers also present. Now coming to inflation accounting, so friends, as we discussed, presently we are following historical cost of accounting. Harsha, Sai, everybody would mention, would make a presentation on how accounting would be if it is an inflation accounting concept. Over to Harsha.
Hello. How many of you have brushed? Not all. I'm audible problem. I'm asking about today. So what's the process of brushing? Left, right, sucking, right? So the inflation is also as same as space. Once it's out, you will make too hard to get it back into the tube. So good morning everyone. Good morning to all the respected dignitaries, my co-presenters and all the others present in this room. I'm going to present my topic on inflation accounting. Before diving into this topic directly, let's have a small recap of what the tradition. Extremely sorry for this. We'll have a recap how the traditional accounting named historical cost accounting is followed. So now, historical cost accounting is one of the generally accepted accounting principles given by the Financial Accounting Standard Board. I've taken the example of an asset. As per this historical cost accounting, this historical cost says us how a company is going to recognize an asset at the time of acquirement on the face of balance sheet. So how this historical cost is measured? Historical cost considers all the cash and cash equivalent costs incurred by the company at the time of purchase of any asset. Apart from that, and there are any other additional expenses incurred by the company. I hope you all knew this. So let's see an example. ABC Limited purchased an asset worth 10 lakhs. At what value you are going to recognize this asset on the books of accounts? Fine. Now the same company has incurred some 50,000 rupees of delivery charges on the same asset at the time of acquirement. What is going to be the total cost of asset that you are going to recognize in the books of ABC Limited? Great. And then the same company has also incurred some installation charges of another 50,000 rupees on the same asset, again at the time of acquirement. Now what is the value of the same asset? 11 lakh. So now the recognition is done as per the historical cost accounting. You are going to maintain this asset at 11 lakhs in the balance sheet. So it's 31st March of the respective year. As per the accounting standard 10, property, plant and equipment, you are going to deal with something. Depreciation. So there are various methods, straight line method, written down value and many others. I've considered written down value for the same asset acquired by ABC Limited. In the year 1, at 31st March, they are going up. I will assume the depreciation rate as 10%. So the asset attracts 10%. It's a small assumption. So at the year end, you are going to charge depreciation on the written down value of the asset at 10%, right? So 11 lakhs into 10% is your depreciation. The carrying value of the asset for the next year is going to be 9.9 lakh. And the same process continues for the coming year. So then the carrying value of the asset is going to be 8.91, 8.01 and so on. What is the purpose of depreciation? The main purpose. For any company, capital expenditure can be a huge amount or can be a negligible amount even sometimes. So let's consider this asset of 11 lakh is a huge amount for ABC Limited. With this process of depreciation, with this accounting policy, ABC Limited is going, right? Please inform me if it's not. So ABC Limited, they are going to recognize depreciation, they are going to keep aside the amount of depreciation from the profit earned, and they are going to save it for the future for at the time of replacement of such asset. When that asset is obsolete, because it will be one day out of order in the future. At that time, I cannot suddenly ask my chief accountant officer to give me 10 lakh or 11 lakh so that I can replace my existing asset. So this depreciation helps, the purpose of depreciation serves in a very beautiful way for any company so that they can easily overcome such kind of replacement of any huge capital expenditures, any huge asset replacements. So now, one day, in a year, this asset is going to be zero in the books of accounts. One day. At that time, the total value of the asset has been depreciated. Right? So 11 lakhs is going to be zero on one day. So keep it aside. The same value of the asset in the market. We purchased it for 11 lakh, but it is 12 lakh, 13, 14, 15 and so on. We don't know when our asset is going to obsolete, when it is going to out of order. But on any case, we are only having 11 lakhs in our hand. But the value of the asset is not 11 lakhs in the future. As for the current marketing conditions, the prices are being very high, so it's completely unpredictable that 11 lakhs will be the price of the asset in the coming future. It's definitely not. So our now the company has saved 11 lakhs in the form of depreciation. At the same time, the value of the asset has been to 16 lakhs at the time of replacement. So how the company is going to tackle this? Then here comes the inflation accounting. This inflation accounting helps with various techniques to any companies to recognize their asset, everything, all the items in the financial statements to overcome such kind of conditions. First of all, let us know what inflation is. See, yesterday a price of a good is 10 rupees. In the next year, the price of a good is 20 rupees. So the inflation is 10 rupees, right? Definitely not. Inflation is not the amount of hike you have. Inflation is a quantitative measure at which the prices of any selected goods and services are constantly increasing in the economy. Inflation measures the rate at which the prices are high, not the amount of high. Understood? So now, what are the effects of inflation on the financial statements? First of all, due to this historical cost accounting, when the historical cost accounting process method is followed, companies cannot disclose the current worth of the company. Because historical cost cannot commensurate any changes happened due to inflation. So this will not give us the true and fair view of the financial statements, which is one of the major requirements as per the accounting policies. And then, due to this historical cost accounting, and also with inflation, there are some elements in the financial statements which are overvalued or valued higher, but there is no such actual overvaluation done. For example, year 1, sale of ABC Limited is 20,000, right? Year 2, the sale of ABC Limited is 50,000, and year 3, the sale of ABC Limited is 22,000. Remember the figures, 20k, 50k, 22k. But the production of the same company is 10,000 units for all the 3 years. The production is same, but the revenue is more. How this can be possible? This is only possible due to the hike in the prices, due to the inflation in the economy. So such hike of revenue cannot be treated as that our employees are constantly working harder and harder and they are producing more units that helps the ABC Limited to get more revenue. The production is same, the manpower is same, but only the revenue is more. Such revenue is only due to the high prices, only due to the inflation. And then the third effect, replacement of fixed assets. We have just seen in the ABC Limited example, it's been hard for them to replace the asset. They have only saved 11 lakhs, but the cost of the asset is 16 lakhs. And then, inaccurate determination of profits. See, at the time of inflation, closing stock is valued at current prices. It gives higher value to the closing stocks that automatically increases the profit. So So that is one of the inaccurate way in determination of profits. And also the next effect is mixing up of holding and operating profits. Profit is earned by the company by all its business activities, and at the same time, if the closing stock is overvalued, the profit due to such overvaluation also includes in the profit shown in the P&L, right? So such mixing up will be done, and the companies will not be knowing what is the amount of profit they have earned from their regular business operations and also from the overvaluation of any elements in the fixed financial statements. And then capital do not remain intact. When there are higher profits, companies usually distribute higher amount of dividends. And that higher amount of dividends causes less amount of reserves. So in this way, capital cannot remain intact. So these are some of the effects that inflation causes on the financial statements. And then not only inflation, price level changes in the market also affects the books of accounts. First, cost of goods sold. We all know this traditional formula: opening stock plus purchases plus various minus closing stocks gives us costs, right? This purchases. In purchases happens throughout the year or at the time we get specified by the company policies. But at the time of purchase, we do make different all the items at different times. But the price do not remain same on all the times. In the month of January, I bought 10 units of my raw material costing 10 rupees. In the month of February, I am going to pay 12 rupees for the same 10 units each. So the price will vary at the time of purchase. So the kind of valuation method you use for the determination of the purchase value also impacts the financial statements. Then the valuation of closing stock. Valuation of closing stock is usually overvalued at the times of inflation, as we already discussed. Then, the effect on the asset side of the balance sheet due to the price level changes. On the asset side, let's start with current assets. Debtors. What is the need, first of all? See, this inflation accounting corrects the disordered figure of the financial statements, proper intercompany comparisons. See, there are different markets, different industries. Inflation hits different industries in different degrees. Food industry might be affected with some degree of inflation. Textile industry will be affected with another degree of inflation. So this inflation accounting tackles such degrees of inflation effect and then intermediate comparisons. Inflation changes day by day. Inflation rates go up, inflation is very high in the current market condition. So I myself, being a company, Schedule 3 gives the comparatives of the balance sheet. So I need to compare what is my cost, income, revenue, expense and so on in the last year and also this year. So this inflation accounting, the techniques that in this inflation accounting can easily solve such problems. And then with the help of this inflation accounting, you can correctly measure your income and also can take good decisions. So now, what are those techniques that can be adopted by a company to overcome the challenges faced if they are following this historical cost accounting? As per, see, there is no any particular technique or any particular rule that has to be followed for inflation accounting. But the only thing given is that any method you follow for inflation accounting should be very accurate, reasonable, easy and effective. So, after all this, we do have some methods which are globally accepted. The first one is current purchasing power method and then current cost accounting. Let's see current purchasing power method. In this method, the items in the financial statements are restated with the terms of constant unit of money. In order to restate the financial statements, companies use general price index. I hope that the taxation capital gains you have this price index numbers like year 1 300, year 2 320, year 3 340. So such kind of price index is used and the items in the financial statements are generally restated with the help of this method. We have conversion technique. Under this current purchasing power method, there are two more categories, namely conversion technique. See, an asset is purchased for 90,000 rupees in the year 1995. So the general price index in the year 1995 is 150. In the current year, this is an assumption, that is not the actual price index figures. The general price index in the year 2022 is 300. So how this restatement of elements in the financial statement is made? Just you take the value of any element, in our example it's a building, divided by the general price index of the year in which the asset is purchased and multiply it with the general price index of the year you require when you are restating it. And there is another method under the current purchasing power. All these two methods are the branches of current purchasing method. First one, conversion technique, and the second one, mid-period conversion technique. As you all knew that there are some elements, there are some kind of transactions happen in the business throughout the year, such as purchases, sales, expenses, etc. As we already discussed, purchase price may vary from year to year, from month to month, maybe from day to day. So, at the time of restating this, mid-period conversion method is used where you will take up average of the price index and you will calculate these transactions and you will restate the elements in the financial statements. But then, this method will only give the price index based on the changes in the complete economy. Maybe in India, for example. This price index is applicable in India for all the industries, for all the businesses and etc. But degree of inflation will not affect as same. Different industries are affected with different degrees of inflation. So, this method is not generally accepted. Then, the next method, current cost accounting method has been come into the picture. This has been designed in the year 1975 by the UK, United Kingdom, by Inflation Accounting Committee. It has been proposed in the year 1975 by Inflation Accounting Committee, but it has not been in use from 1975. There were many debates, discussions happened, but at the end, SSAP 16 has been issued and finalized that current cost accounting method can be generally accepted, and SSAP refers to statement of standard accounting practice. Under this method, it only considers the price index to the extent of one particular industry. Textile businesses has to restate the financial statements as required by the inflation accounting. They can only consider the price levels changes or the effects happened in that particular industry but not in the whole economy. So this method is generally accepted. Under this method, fixed assets can be valued at net realizable value, closing stocks can be valued at net realizable value, and under this method, there is one more statement in the financial statements where you will show either you earn a profit or you have incurred any losses. That particular statement shows you there will be a separate statement where you can see if you have earned any profit or loss due to the price level changes but not due to any financial transactions happen. And then, but this method is not one of the generally accepted accounting principles. But voluntarily some companies give these statements, have restated financial statements with the help of this method voluntarily considering the current market conditions. As the users of the financial statements need this to compare the financial statements with other companies and other markets. So these were the two methods that are in the implementation of inflation accounting. And we will conclude this by the relationship of inflation and productivity. As we all discussed in the sales example, the amount of sale in the first year is 20, second year 50, third year 22. The sale is only happened due to the hike in the prices but not due to the increase in productivity. See, there is a cartoon there. They are discussing to increase the productivity but not increase the sale, because increasing of sale is not in their hands. And then intensification of budgeting. As you all know that budgeting happens at the starting of the year by any company, so that they can know whether the company is going to go forward or not, what is the amount they are going to earn, what is the amount that they are going to expense and everything. Some companies started at the time of running the budget, they are starting one more thing called requirement budget. This completely states about the effect of inflation on the budget. And then inflation and dividend policy. And at the time of inflation, overvaluing of elements in the financial statements done, profit is increased, dividends are distributed. But at the time of distribution of such dividends, companies have to make sure that they are giving such dividend from the current year earnings, but not from the reserves and surplus that has been happened in the previous years. So there are some limitations to inflation accounting. The major limitation is that this method or this inflation accounting is not generally accepted in all the countries and by all other professional bodies. And this inflation accounting affects you in the result of activity. Just thank you. I thank everyone for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to speak here. And I personally thank Mr. Purna sir for giving me enough time on preparing on my paper presentation. Thank you.
That was Access Agri from Vijayawada, presenting on inflation accounting. I think it's a new concept, and we will discuss about it in my talk. The next topic is on robotic accounting. Again, a very interesting talk about how the technology is going to help us in making our job easy and focus on some important areas to make our decisions in the course of financial interactions. So to address this topic, we have Mr. Hemant Krishnasamy to address. Hemant Krishnasamy.
Hello everyone. Good morning all. Are you guys interested in overcoming the manual accounting process? No? Okay. Then you have the right place. Myself, I am the member of associates presenting you the robotic accounting concept. Let's see the contents of robotic accounting. What is robotic process automation? To understand robotic accounting, we need to understand what is robotic process automation. Robotic accounting, these are main concepts to be discussed today. How and where does robotic accounting work? Insights help us to understand better about robotic accounting concept. Steps for RPA implementation in robotic accounting. Some benefits of robotic accounting and disadvantages of robotic accounting, and a slight example which will be discussed at the end of the PPT to understand you better about the robotic accounting concept. Let's start. What is robotic process automation? Robotic process automation is a software which can execute rule-based tasks, and this also automates software boards which help observe the human digital actions and perform them, show them what to do and let them do the work. Robotic process automation can interact with the software or application the same way people interact. What is robotic accounting? Robotic accounting is a part of robotic process automation. It is a small part which compared to robotic process automation. It contains human replacement, but it is far away from it. To replace humans in robotic process
these need to be think more logically rather than rule-based. So it cannot be replaced humans. It acts as a helping hand for the accounts department. It reduces the effort needed to combine the data from different accounting processes and also evaluates tasks for the employees and create more encouraging jobs. How does robotic accounting work? Robotic process automation consists of programmable software bots which automate time-consuming and repetitive tasks in financial tasks. The technical functions much like in Microsoft Macro, but the key difference is the power and the reach. We can create macros in our Excel, but the others having the same Excel cannot use these macros. To use, they need to again create a macro. So this helps the key difference in macros. Where does robotic accounting work? We can use robotic accounting at all our places. As we have discussed, robotic accounting is a key in using in their regular accounting process. Applying robotic accounting in auditing. RPA framework is designed to free the auditors doing repetitive and low judgment tasks. This can be helpful for the auditors having low judgment tasks or low level jobs so that auditors can concentrate more on high level tasks and can develop their in judgment process rather than doing low level thinking tasks. Applying robotic process in accounting. RPA is a software which can accountants to in developing repetitive tasks and cutting them to the lower levels. This phase generally captures the human's digital actions and generate a script based on the human actions, and then it replaces tasks based on the scripts generated so that the time-consuming processes get neutralized to the low level times. Steps to RPA implementation in accounting. List out the process you need to automate. All the processes cannot be automated, so we need to list out the process which we want to automate and prioritize them based on the metrics like complexity and return of income. Think about how automation interacts with the regular businesses so that we can understand what to automate and what to not automate. Full feasibility assessment report for each and every task we need to automate and identify the tasks which are not structured, not centralized, so that we can cut them in the next step, re-exist. After performing feasibility report, we identify some tasks which are not in line with them. So in this step, we can re-adjust them to the way we want to automate them so that it is better helping, not quarreling with not disputing with others. Other tasks. Gathering user stories. This helps how our end program need to be. Gathering inputs from end users and gathering data from end users helps us how the automation and how the software need to be used by them. By getting a clarity about the output, we need to prepare workflows which helps development team to use them in development process. Start development process. After the workflow is prepared, the development team will start the development process based on the workflow prepared in the previous step. This development team uses specific tools like UiPath, Blue Prism, etc. based on the workflow we existed. So we need to choose a perfect workflow for our businesses so that right tool can be achieved. Testing of RPA process. After development of RPA, we need to test that, and definitely we can't say it works to the development team so that they can rectify them again. After reconfirm and develop. After the bugs have been rectified, it is free for usage. Let's discuss benefits of robotic accounting. Low cost, more revenue. Here cost indicates maintenance cost. Once the program has been utilized, it does not require much cost and it cuts down the repetitive tasks so that unnecessary expenses have been break down. Reducing human errors. Since the program executes repetitive tasks, then human errors like doing repetitive tasks and getting large errors will be reduced and cut down in this way. Volume relation. As the discussed below, robotic accounting do the same process as the humans do. So it helps humans a lot in creation of value. Easy installation. Installation of robotic accounting done in a week. So it does not matter you to change the robotic process. But the research development and the other process takes a long time. Data can be stored for a long time. Since the data is stored in the system, so our audit professionals can get the data whenever needed. Since the every process and every automation has some advantages and disadvantages, let's discuss about the drawbacks of robotic. Difficult to automate non-repetitive tasks. The tasks which are non-repetitive, which occur once in a time, those tasks cannot be automated. Cannot be used when the tasks are logical based rather than rule based. These robots cannot understand or cannot perform logical actions like humans. So the tasks which containing logical need to be automated very complex. So it is better not to automate logical tasks. A bit complex for non-technical person. A person having no knowledge of technology, it is difficult to use these softwares. Huge investment cost. As we have discussed before the benefits, the cost for investing in this is huge in the initial stage. Later on, the maintenance cost of this gets reduced. Examples of robotic accounting. Briefly said Tally, Prime, SAP, and Oracle, and Computax, and Microsoft Excel as the brief examples of robotic accounting. I want to show you an example so that you can better understand the robotic accounting concept. Here we take an example of furniture shop. These are just an example of small stock management concept. Here, a junior accountant enters the purchase entries and sale entries, and later, after the stock reaches order to reorder quantity, the mails automatically sent to the vendors requiring the raising of quotations. So let's see them. Here, the entry file of purchases and the last bill number and bill number need to be entered. The last bill number will be automatically populated. Since no entries are being registered, the last bill number is 0. So we can proceed to bill number as number 1. And date of entry and item what we want to purchase and what we have purchased, tables and quantity. So the basic information can be captured. 400 and the date 10,000. The moment we test the purchase entry icon, the transaction gets erased in the purchase entries. Let's see the transaction is erased in the purchase entry. So the moment we test the purchase entry, the automatically stock also gets refreshed. See, here we can see the tables having purchase quantity 400, sales 0, and the remaining stock is 400. This reorder of quantity is set by the senior accountant, so that the junior accountant, even without knowing the robot reorder of quantity, can simply send a mail when it stands there. Here, the reorder robot is 100, the stock remaining is 400. So it is huge time for the order. So there it stands as don't mail. The moment we get the mail on pressing mail, we can directly send mails to the purchasers for purchase. So let's enter with the sale and we'll check the what how it works. Since we have entered purchases entry 1, it's showing the last bill entry as 1. So we have not entered purchases sales at least 1. So it's showing as last bill entry is 0. Let's enter one sale entry. So since 0 bill number will be 1 and the date of sale entry, and the item is sold will be considered as stable since only we have a stock left and the quantity we sold is just 40 and rate 15,000. The moment we press the sale entry, it gets adjusted in the sale entry register. We can see that. And the moment sale entry is passed, the stock automatically changes. We can see the stock remaining is 360 and the reorder level is 100. So still the loan bill stamp is depleting. Let's pass another entry to see how the mails are sent to the suppliers after it reaching reorder level. So the second sale entry and the tables and the quantity like as soon as 300 and the rate is 15,000. The moment we test the sale entry, the stock reduces. So the sale entry is got settled here and the stock got reduced. And see, stock is 60 and the reorder level is 100. It's high time to order, else we lose our businesses. So the moment the junior accountant press send mail button, automatically a mail goes to the suppliers requesting for quotations. Let's see that. The accountant presses the send mail, the mail pop-up has been received. Thank you. Thank you, Asriya and Srikansa and Ananda Associates for giving me that wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Standing in front of 650 students, friends, and addressing on these topics. In fact, it needs a lot of motivation and guts to stand, and that is, I'm sure they know the shivering they had gone through preparing and standing in. Coming to the topic, in fact, if you relate, robotic accounting and procure to pay can be linked up. So in fact, what Hemant mentioned in terms of he explained about how the reorder level can be structured out so that the order can be placed, it can be linked to procure to pay, and that will help in terms of procuring and processing. So friends, if you understand, these three topics are very useful at this point of time because it will help us as a professional to save your time. And as one of the speakers rightly mentioned, you can delegate this job to machines. They will do a job which is repetitive in nature and something which when you can save time, you can apply your mind for doing a better job for the professional end. The first topic is procure to pay. We have about 8 to 9 stages in procure to pay, but the last 3-4 areas only are useful there from the finance angle. But otherwise, if you analyze these 8 stages, what is happening? It's useful broadly for a manufacturing company, and in terms of rating, you may not need so many steps. But one area which is very important for all of us to understand is, it's not one person who is taking all the 8 stages of job. It is different people. Why do you need different people to do the job, different jobs? It's more of internal checks, internal controls, and it will help. There is no connivance between these two people. Because more than 2 people, there is a possibility of fraud happening. That's another topic which maybe another speaker can talk. So there is a lot of work sharing, and there is a limitation of one person. The scope is only limited, and that person finishes his job and he is done with the job. And in this procure to pay, I think there is also, once you identify a vendor, you are trying to ensure there is quality, and you have identified the vendors so that you don't waste time. The moment you come to a stage where robotic accounting stage comes, your level is clicked, so the order goes out. So by fixing the vendors, the requirements can be procured quickly, in quality time, and you know also the vendor will given you how much time you may take to process it and come back to you. So the point which I was mentioning, just in time, will also be useful there. So I'm sure the first speaker, Vamsi Krishna, has made a wonderful presentation. I request each one of you to give a good round of applause for the presentation. So the second topic is on information accounting by Asha. Friends, as we also mentioned, we follow the historical cost of accounting as of now. So we have come a long way in moving from single entry to double entry, and double entry in block shape they talk of triple entry, and there's also other possibilities coming in. So inflation is something which all of you as future chartered accountants should also think about as a futuristic point. And a lot of advantages is mentioned, but equally there are disadvantages as well. So this concept needs to be discussed in detail in terms of our receiving standards. They are all following on historical cost only standards are there. But definitely a good concept to work out and see how the businesses will be using this concept in their accounting at a future date. And also, we also rightly mentioned how this concept would be viewed by other agencies like income tax, RBI, GST, because it will also affect them in long run. So he has brought it. As you mentioned, there are two methods as of now, but again, a lot of debate and discussion is going on. The one area that I found very interesting was in terms of fixed asset. He was very clear in mentioning net replacement value, but in terms of Indians, it always we talk of net realizable value. So I think that's something which we also need to look at. But it's an interesting topic, and I'm sure Asha has made a wonderful presentation. I request all of you to give a good round of applause for her. As mentioned rightly, Hemant, it is definitely going to help all the professionals, either for us or students as well as future chartered accountants. It will help you to reduce your jobs which are repetitive in nature. As I rightly mentioned, non-repetitive, you need to apply your mind, and that's something which is what we should do. We should not be doing the same old monotonous job of keying in time and again. If you can save time and you can use your time more productively for other activities. So macros, as I rightly mentioned, is one area which a lot of professionals keep using, but there are a lot of others which can be used. The most important point which I felt was very interesting in terms of robotic accounting is the logic. Only the human brain can be used by us, and all those situations where logic is required, we have to be using our brain. Machine doesn't need brain, but it can do repetitive job more faster. So Hemant also has done a wonderful job. So a good round of applause for him also. I think we had a good first session. I'm sure all of you are very hungry also. So I congratulate all three of you for the excellent presentation. I'm sure I now hand over to the host. Thank you all for listening to this session very attentively. Because of Ravi Kishore Garu, who said all of you listen very carefully. Otherwise, all 650 of you would have been speakers and you would have been there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Please stay over there and please hand over the participation certificates and mementos to the three speakers of the first session. I request the chairperson of Vijayawada branch and chairman Sikasa to please join the session chairman and certificates. Yeah, please. That is Ramsing. Harsha. Hemant. Yeah, we have come to the conclusion of this first technical session. We will break for lunch. All of you join us in the dining hall. There are two counters. One is for the
We will have first technical session on leadership. Later the MC Das Ajay Singh Amrit Mahotsav session will follow. Thank you. Please break for lunch.
yeah, yes, that was a programming correction.